Hey
Hey mamas,
mamas,
welcome back to another episode. I'm Jess.
I'm Erica.
Oh my god, we are so excited to speak to this lady. This person has given the most beautiful gift you can ever receive or give. She decided to give the gift of being a family. And Gloria, we are so excited to hear your story. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
I think this was something that we'd wanted to speak on a long time. But it's always those things that, where do you start?
And we always would ask each other, like, I would be like, Jess, if I couldn't have kids, would you carry my babies? And she'd be like, yeah, of course. And then we'll ask our partners and they'll be like, no, that's just weird. And we'll be like, but why? Like, she's my best friend. Why wouldn't she be able to carry my child? But it's things that, there's so many questions. Even today when I was going back and forth with Jessica, I was like, there's just so much I want to know because it's a topic that obviously none of us, until you've been there, the things that you want to know are not really answered. And we were like on YouTube searching for different stories. So at the end, I kind of thought, let me just hold back. I'm going to get like a real story told to me in a few hours. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing what you've done.
Mama's Code.
Tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? What's your family situation?
I am 30. My husband's full-time lifer of the military. So we move a lot. We've moved a lot. I have 2 kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My oldest is special needs. He is autistic. And so because of that, finding a job that gives me the freedom to constantly, care for him. And if the school calls me, that was always kind of an issue, which is why I've stayed a stay-at-home mom for so long. And kind of what led me to surrogacy as well.
Tell us a bit about how you got into surrogacy.
What I really wanted to do, honestly, was to be a foster parent. I'm a former foster child. I moved out of the system once I turned 18. And so that's really what I wanted to do. But with my husband being military, we move all the time. It would break my heart to have, a kid or multiple kids that felt at home with me and my family. And then for me to have to tell them they have to go to a different foster home because I am now moving. And in the States, you're not allowed to take that child out of that state that they're in the system with. So I thought that would be a bit too heartbreaking for me, but how else can I give back? And so that kind of led me to, it started out with, I was going to donate eggs first. And because of autism and my son having it, and we don't really know how it develops or is it genetic, we don't know any of that. So that automatically canceled me out. But they went, hey, how about surrogacy? Are you done having kids? Are you comfortable being pregnant? And I was like, oh, I don't know. That's like a big thing. And this was 4 years ago. So it's still like, I hadn't heard of it. I didn't know anybody that done it. I couldn't even really look on Instagram and find somebody that was open about their journey. And so I let it go. And then 2 years later, I was like, man, I'm still in California. My kids are growing up. Let me just go for it. I literally searched so many agencies and I applied, and here we are. That's kind of how it all happened.
How did you tell your husband?
Honestly, he had left the family for about 1.5 years. He had so much training to do. He was furthering himself in his career, which was, great for all of us. But I said, hey, when you're done with, taking care of you, I would like to do something for me. I don't know what it is yet, but I would like for you to just be supportive of that. And so that was kind of our deal. And he came back and I said, the surrogacy thing has still been on my mind. So he was just kind of like, let's get all the details and we'll go from there. And so I Googled and researched and talked to multiple agencies. And finally, when I had like a spreadsheet of information to like give him this presentation and get him on board, that's when I finally told him. And he was like, okay, like it's your body. I'm not going to tell you what to do and what not to do.
I thought you were going to say when he went away and came back, you were pregnant and you were like, surprise, I'm about to give birth. Or send him a picture like, here.
No, so you can't do that. And we'll get into that process. But he actually has to be very present. If you're married, your other half has to be very present for all of it. So no surprises for him.
What were the different, like, what was your winning factor for deciding on which which agency to go with? Was there different requirement list on each one?
No, there wasn't really a different requirement list. I know they all pretty much asked for the same, but for me, I remember going to the interview with my agency, and I actually went with, they're called International Surrogacy Agency. I remember going into that meeting and kind of the coordinator telling me, you know, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like, this is something very serious. It's IVF, it's giving birth. You know, you're carrying someone else's child. They're very protective of that. Some parents are, you know, they want to be your best friend, and some parents, you're like a business transaction to them. And so they don't really care how you're doing or what you're doing as long as that baby's okay. And then you have it and you're gone. And so for me, hearing an agency be really honest about the ups and the downs and, you know, what my journey could possibly be like, I felt like, okay, they're not really hiding anything. So I think I'm just going to go with them. And also, they're super close to my house, and you have to do these mandatory support meetings. And I didn't want to be driving to Los Angeles or San Diego, which is traffic nightmare. So I just felt like all the pieces fell into place.
What were the requirements to be a surrogate?
So you have to fill out this crazy long application with all of your family history, your kids, your birth, how much they weighed, like what time of the day they were born. It's like crazy. So then you send that in and they go over it. And if you check out that part, they call you, you go into the office and you kind of go over what's expected of you, like, hey, this is what happens. It's IVF. You're going to have appointments weekly, almost daily in the beginning. You have to go through a psych eval. You know, here is what payment looks like. Is all of this okay for you? And then if you agree to that, then they ask for your hospital records of your birth. So then they track that down. And obviously with me being military, it was hard because I had like kids everywhere. Like one of the clinics doesn't even exist anymore. So all they really had was like the piece of paper the doctor fills out when the baby's born. And so if that checks out and your psychological eval checks out, then they create a profile for you. And it's like Match.com. Your favorite color, what music, what do you like to eat? Like, just imagine you were like trying to meet your soulmate. That's basically what you have to answer and create. And from there forward, the agency takes your profile and they spit it out to couples that they think you would match with. And if there's parents out there that go, hey, I would like to meet her, they set up almost like a blind date via Zoom if they're away, or, you know, at a cafe if they're local, and you just talk and you ask these really uncomfortable questions. And if you're able to answer them, then you both walk away and you each get 72 hours to decide yes or no. So the parents say yes or no first. If they say yes, the agency comes to you and goes, hey, they've said yes. Think about it. Let us know. And then from then on, you have 72 hours. And then your whole process begins with medicine and labs and all of that stuff.
At the beginning, when you were registering with the agency, did they ask you if you wanted to be, is it traditional way or an egg donor?
A lot of agencies nowadays, because of legal constraints, only do gestational surrogacy, which is where it's not your egg and it's somebody else's egg and you're just the oven that it bakes in. You do get asked if you're okay with carrying twins. You do get asked if you want more kids, because anything can go wrong. You can lose fallopian tubes, full hysterectomy, C-sections can happen. So it is advice that if you want more kids, you should probably wait until you've had all of yours and then decide if this is something you want to look into.
I have a question. Because obviously it's gestational surrogacy. I don't know if in the US how it is, but here you are still the legal guardian of the baby until about 6 months later, when they can switch the birth certificate and give so basically that the mother, the one that carried the baby, like basically all the rights go off from her and go to the intended parents. Is that how it works in the States or no?
Not at all. It is their baby from the get-go, and you each have a set of lawyers that they pay for. So even though they're paying for my lawyers do not ever speak to them. And you basically say, hey, this isn't my kid. I am acknowledging that it's not mine, that I do not have any rights. And that paper goes to the court, and the court sends something back for the hospital. And that lets the hospital know, go ahead and write baby's, intended parents' names on the birth certificate right away.
That's wild.
From the moment that you chose, well, both parties chose each other, and the process, how long was the IVF process for you to fall pregnant?
For me, it was really long. We had a lot of setbacks because we matched right before COVID happened. And then March of 2020 here, everything shut down. So then we were stuck in limbo, and I couldn't begin the process until July. That's when the fertility clinics all opened up and said, okay, we can start seeing patients again. And so, but normally it all really depends, because it depends on how long each party's lawyer takes in approving the legal contracts. That's really the part that's the most awkward and the hardest, because there's this game of ping pong that goes back and forth, because contracts are very strict. Mine had how many cups of coffee a day I could have, how much tuna, if I ate tuna, what kind of cheeses, those things like that. And I know for your normal pregnancy, you're kind of like, well, duh, I know I'm not supposed to eat like cold meats and things like that. But these parents, mine weren't even in the States. They were in Spain. So they couldn't really check up on me the way they wanted to. So they made sure to include all of that in my contract. And so then my lawyer would take it and she would be like, no, that's ridiculous. What if you're really tired one day and you want to have 2 cups of coffee? Why shouldn't you be allowed to, as long as you're not doing that every single day? So that has to go back and forth. And for us, because of COVID, it took up to like 4 months to get everything finalized and signed and agreed upon.
In this contract, was there a point that said if the child was to be diagnosed with, a disability within the womb, could you terminate the pregnancy? Was that in there? And was it your decision or theirs?
No, it's theirs. And actually, good question. That is also something that they ask you when you're applying for surrogacy is, are you okay with at any point in time terminating this pregnancy if the IPs choose to do so? For me, it was easy because I do have a special needs son. So I know how hard it is to handle that. Not everybody can handle that. And in China, for example, you're not allowed to have a Down syndrome baby. Those babies would get taken away and God knows what would happen to them. So you have to go, do I want to put the IPs through that? You have to, for me, it was like, I'm okay with doing what they feel is best for them and their baby. But yes, that was in there for sure.
Mama, I love you.
So obviously you've got all the lawyers going back and forth, and that can already be a very stressful situation. You know, you're like, but why can't I have 2 cups of coffee if I need it? Like, just small things, but it can work you up. So how did you feel prior to like signing everything and agreeing to the point where you've gone into the clinic and you're getting all these treatments done?
It's a scary time. You're kind of like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, what am I getting myself into? Because they can prep you, we can prep you all, you know, you can read stories, but your IPs are your IPs and everyone is different. Some IPs don't care whatsoever. They're just like, hey, call me when the baby's done. I'll come get him and goodbye. And others really want to make sure that are you walking? Are you exercising? So when I realized that mine were going to be very hands-on in that sense, I was a little scared because it's like, I really am relinquishing control of myself and my body for about a year. And so I was like, oh my God, should I continue? You know, you're allowed to back out at any time. So I was scared, and my husband would constantly ask me, are you sure you want to do this? Like, do you think it's worth it? And I just said, you know what, like, let me just go with it. And I just signed the contracts. Yeah. And then it got scary again when you're in the clinic every week, when you're constantly giving blood, when they're constantly measuring you, and you're doing all these shots that are not fun at all. And now your life revolves around all this medicine. And for me, it was July. It was the dead of summer. All my friends are out drinking, and I'm here like, oh, I can't do that. And so it was rough for me in, I think, the first month and a half of actually starting treatment as well. And then, you know, you start to get really close to the parents. In some cases, in my case, we got really close, and I got to hear their story of why they're doing this. And it just made all like the doubts go away. And I was able to just tell myself, like, you're doing the right thing. Like, this is amazing. Like, you're helping somebody in the best way possible.
So it's safe to say at one point you thought, why am I doing this? Like, have some sort of doubt and regret.
Of course. Yeah. No, I think everyone is going to have that. We're not used to being controlled by this imaginary being and this like, you know, I've never dealt with lawyers before. So for me, it was scary. It's like, oh my God, what if I do something wrong? And then what? And, you know, the biggest question I think that comes from Instagram for me was, you know, are you allowed to have sex with your husband? And I was like, yes, but there is a part in the contract that does not allow you to do that for the first 3 months, being that you can get pregnant with your own child because of all these hormones. And there's no way to tell if that's your baby or their baby until the end. And I don't think anybody wants to go through that.
Oh my God, imagine the baby comes out looking exactly like your husband. Like, what happens then?
The biggest legal battle ever. And, you know, the nurse at the fertility clinic straight up said, this will be the most expensive baby you will ever have. It will financially ruin you if you do not follow these rules. And I don't want to file for bankruptcy. I don't want to pay almost $300,000 in legal fees because, I couldn't wait 3 months. So I was like, I have too much to lose. That sounds horrible. Don't look at me. Don't think about it. Don't breathe my way. Thank you. And so after that, it's like, whatever, if you're comfortable with it, do it. If you're not, don't. It's up to you.
You mentioned about the psych test that they do on you. Does this involve, obviously, you not wanting any more kids, and how ready you are to let go of this baby that you've bonded with for the whole 9 months?
Yes, 100%. It really, I was there for 4 hours. You take like a 2-hour test where you answer, a billion questions on, do you sleep? How angry do you get at this scenario? They're really just trying to see, like, are you a psycho? Are you going to run away with this baby at the end of it? And that was one of the questions. He said, do you want more kids? And I said, would I die if it happened? No. But am I planning? No. Like, I feel complete. My husband and I feel complete with our 2 boys. And if I have this baby and I can't have any more, I'd be okay with that. So yes, that's very part of it. And they also call your husband too if you're married. He had to do like a 30-minute conversation where the psychologist asked him, how is she after she gives birth? Is she, does she get postpartum depression? Did she cry a lot? Was she angry? Are you okay with this baby not being yours and not really being involved? Or, how involved do you want to be? Because I think my husband was like, what do I do? Like, this isn't my thing. Like, do I treat you like you're pregnant, or do I just treat you like you're just my wife who's not pregnant? Because technically it's not my kid. I think it was kind of confusing for him, but he did the best that he could. And I was just really vocal of, hey, I'm not feeling well right now. Like, give me my space. Or the IPs would like to meet you. Are you okay with that? And so I think really just being honest with my husband helped. But as far as the psych, they will weed you out. Even if you think you're ready for it, if it comes out that you're not, they will let you know. And they will let the agency know, and, you'll get that, hey, thank you, but we're going to have to end it here.
Because you can get a little bit crazy.
But you do this before getting all the injections, because I was just thinking, oh, I'm going to end it here, but I'm carrying the baby. So what do I do with it? Do I just like put it to a side?
You even make your, like your profile to match that. Yeah. After they checked out your birth records, that's when the psych eval comes.
So imagine, because you said something about postnatal depression. Them asking your husband if you got the postnatal depression with your kids, how would they know that you wouldn't get postnatal depression with this next kid? I
think they're going off of, if I've already had it, the chances of me getting it again are probably higher, and I probably shouldn't be doing this. If I haven't had it, then maybe I will get it, but maybe I won't. And that's just kind of how they go about it. And it was like, my husband was so scared because he was like, I don't know what to say. What if you lie to them? Like, what? And I just like blew your cover, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie to them. So just answer it honestly.
I can imagine. And men are so dramatic as well. They're like, oh my God, did I say that well?
And I was going to say, especially because even as your own partner, pregnancy can be confusing for them as well, because for the most part, they feel some sort of detachment from the baby. So it's all a bit weird for them as well. When you found out that, you're pregnant and we're good to go, did that fill you with the same excitement as you felt when you fell pregnant with your own child?
Way more. Because you follow this embryo from the beginning. We found an egg donor. we're fertilizing eggs. These made it through fertilization. This one's a boy, this one's a girl. So to prepare, I feel like for me anyway, I plan for it like, hey, are you ready? Yeah, we're ready. Okay, let's go get pregnant. And then you find out like maybe 6 weeks later. This is like you're telling yourself, please body, like please let it stick, because a lot of the times they don't. No matter how healthy you are or how fertile you are or how great the embryo is, sometimes they just don't, and it takes 3, 4, 5 times to get it to stick. So when I found out I was pregnant after the first transfer, I was like, oh my God, I felt like I could breathe, because, you also don't want to have to face the parents and face their disappointment. They've been waiting for this for so long, most of them, that you don't want to be the one that, tells them like, hey, it didn't work. So in my case, I was way more excited when they told me I was pregnant.
Did you get to pick the sex? Well, not you, but the parents.
The parents did. So I thought they picked it actually, but because a lot of science is involved, they actually they flipped a coin. One wanted a girl, one said, hey, I don't want to decide. They flipped the coin, and the one that didn't want to decide won. So they told the fertility clinic to pick the healthiest embryo of the whole batch. So they didn't pick it, but they knew once the clinic picked it that it was a boy.
How crazy that they could see the sex from it being the tiniest little thing before it's even in your system. That is insane. How was the pregnancy for you? Did you get loads of morning sickness? Was it any different to your own?
My pregnancies are horrible. So I know it's like weird that I would even want to be a surrogate, because I absolutely hate being pregnant. But this one, I thought it was all smooth sailing until I hit that second semester or trimester. And that's when I got the worst morning sickness of my life. And it was horrible. And so they put me on meds, and then I was fine. And then the third trimester came, and my joints were in so much pain. And again, I don't know if that is IVF or if it's I'm just 30 now and my body is like, hey, you're too old for this. Like, what are you doing? But it was a tough pregnancy. I'm not gonna lie.
Would you do surrogacy again?
For sure. I know it sounds so crazy, but we haven't even gotten into like the thick of it. But after the craziness that was delivery, when I saw them, they already had a daughter through surrogacy. So this was her little brother. When I saw the 4 of them together for the first time, I felt so proud. I was like, oh my God, me and this egg donor made that happen for them. Like, they're this beautiful little family because I was willing to donate my body and time to give them their little baby. And it's like the best thing ever. It really is.
Did you have any disagreements or like with the IPs that you just thought, I don't want to do this with you guys anymore?
Yes. So my IPs are doctors. So because of COVID, they were very chill during the actual pregnancy. So I assumed that I was getting these like super chill people that, hey, we've been in contact this whole time. Like, they're like family now. They came to live in the States a month before I was due, just to make sure that they were here for it in case anything happened. And I think there was some sort of miscommunication where they felt like they could see me every day. And at this point in time, the kids were still full-time online. So here I am, miserably 8.5 months pregnant, I have a huge dog that gets on my nerves. I'm online schooling 2 kids. I have like 3 tablets going at the same time. And they're like, "Hey, can we come by?" And I'm like, no, you can't right now. Like every Saturday and Sunday I've blocked off for you. You guys get to do whatever, we get to go wherever. But during the week, like I cannot. And they were kind of upset by that. And I remember you get a caseworker. So it's not just you dealing with these people. There's a middleman, there's a professional, somebody that isn't afraid to step on toes the way I would be. And I remember texting her and saying, I can't do this anymore. Like, please help me. Like, I've told them no so many times and they keep asking and asking. And at this point, I'm afraid they're just going to show up at my door because they have my address. And she was like, I don't know why they're being like this, because the entire time you were pregnant, they barely even reached out to me to ask about, hanging out with you or anything. So it's really weird that all of a sudden they're like wanting to see you every day and for hours at a time. And so she finally had to tell them and say, hey, she's not on vacation. You guys are on vacation. You're more than welcome to explore the area and have fun with your daughter. But Monday through Friday, she's a mom and she's a full-time mom, and she doesn't have time for you guys to drop by whenever you feel like it. And, they were upset by that because their reasoning was, well, we want the baby to hear our voice as much as possible. And I understand that. I really do. But when you choose surrogacy, you also choose to kind of let go of some of that because it's someone else caring for you. So I feel like you'll get the baby when it's out and in your hands, and then you can do whatever you want with your baby.
It sounds like the nightmare in-laws that just always want to be on top of your case.
It kind of was like that. And my husband was like, it got to the point where it physically made me ill. And I ended up actually going into labor early because I developed high blood pressure from the stress. And we just had to get him out. And I was like, oh my God, just get him out. Like, get him out so I can hand them to him and I can be left alone. And so I gave birth, and they actually became completely different people once they had their baby in their arms. They were like the coolest people. We hung out all the time. It was like jokes and laughter, and my kids loved their daughter, and it was just like, this is so weird. Like it just changes constantly. And I mean, everyone's under a lot of stress. It's like a high stress situation that you're both in. And so I feel like once it's done and the baby's delivered, you kind of get to be who you truly are, because there's no more expectations.
I really want you to explain to me, well, try to explain to me. You obviously love this baby, right? Because
yeah.
I've seen, I got myself so worked up looking at different surrogacy stories, and it's like, yeah, and I just give it to the parents, and I'm thinking, I have 2 kids, and I can't, and I know maybe it's because, it's not really your kid, but you've carried and bonded with this baby for 9 months. I can't, in my head, as the mother that I am, I can't physically imagine me saying, yeah, here you go, and then not feeling anything, like no emotion whatsoever, just handing. I just don't know. I can't explain it, and I really want you to try and explain.
So I thought, and everybody thinks everything that you're thinking and feeling and all of that, but when you get to some of these stories of why these people are going through surrogacy, like for example, my IPs before me, they were trying to get their second baby. They lost all their embryos and they wouldn't take. So they went through almost a year and a half of trying to have this baby and constantly being told, hey, he didn't make it, she didn't make it, or she was pregnant and then miscarried a lot. And so when you hear them speak of how badly they want this baby, it's not even really the baby anymore. You want to make these people happy. You want to give them what they've been praying for years. And so when you go into it, I feel like you have this like hole in your heart for the parents. It's not really about the baby anymore. You're doing everything to make them happy. And it just so happens that it's a baby that's going to make them happy. But really, the whole journey is about you and the parents. And so even through the bonding, they're constantly calling you and checking on you, and you're talking to them, and you're talking about the baby, but you want to know how they're doing, and you get excited when they get excited because you hit another milestone, or you send them their first ultrasound, or you tell them, hey, the test came back all good. There's no disability as of right now. And so when you do give birth, even though you've been baking this baby as well as you possibly could, you honestly cannot wait to see the look on those parents' faces when you go, here's what we've been working for, like as a team, like here it is, like congratulations. So for me, it wasn't that hard because I love my kids, and I know that these parents are going to love this baby just as much as I love mine. So I always felt like I was putting him in great hands. Like, you are where you belong. I never once felt like somebody was taking what was mine. And I told myself that from the beginning too. So I'm not sure if that helped. Like, this is not yours. You're just baking it. It's not related to you at all. It doesn't even look like me. The baby was the whitest blonde, so blonde it looked like it didn't even have hair, blue eyes. So you're just like, oh wow, like that came out of me. So I mean, there is an attachment, but it's more of a thank you for allowing me on this journey with you kind of attachment versus like, oh, you're my baby kind of thing. And so you'd be surprised at how easy it is to give these people their baby.
Yeah, I think it's the preparing for the whole journey and really knowing 100% I'm going to do this. Even though me and Erica were talking the other day that here the regulations are you already need to have children, or you need to be someone that absolutely knows they don't want any children. But we were saying that you will never know that you don't want children until you're in those shoes. So it's, for us, it's a bit like, how is that a balance? If you've already got kids, you know the experience, you know that they're a nightmare sometimes and you don't want more kids. But if you've never experienced that and being pregnant, and even though you know your why and your purpose of, you really want to make this new family over there, the whole mind journey that you go through pregnancy, the changes your body takes, and it's a lot. So I think you need to be like, I don't know, like we were just saying that the hormones that you go through, 1 minute you're happy to do what you're doing, and the next minute, are you not going to be like, actually, why am I doing this for someone else when it's my body stretching, it's my aches, it's my sickness?
No, I totally agree. And so my agency, it is a requirement that you've already had kids and that you are 100% positive that if they told you tomorrow, hey, you can't have any more kids, would you be able to handle that? And there was times where it crossed my mind when I was pregnant, and I was scared of, what if this is a C-section? I've never had a C-section before. I don't know how that's going to be. What if it's so traumatizing that even if I can have my own kids still, I'm like, hell no, and then I'm stuck. Or what if I need to use a surrogate next time? And so it is scary in that sense. But again, I think it's a great that one of the requirements is that you have had children before, and that for the most part, you're done.
What's the cost of it in the US?
Well, I don't know exact numbers, but the IPs have had to pay the fertility clinic to make their embryos. They've had to pay their donor for donating. They have to pay the surrogacy agency for finding a surrogate. They have to pay my lawyers, their lawyers. They have to pay for all the documents. They have to pay for my fertility treatments. They have to pay for my insurance policy. They also have to buy a life insurance policy on me in case anything happens during labor or during this pregnancy that my children are taken care of. And they have to pay me. And my pay alone ended up being around 60 grand. So I would say it's up in the $150,000 plus easily.
Imagine this child being so expensive and they come out an asshole. We were saying, we're not saying this.
They can deal with that one.
We were saying this, when was it? Yesterday. We were like, imagine the amount of money that goes into this, because, you know, if it's traditional, it's much cheaper because in theory, they only pay for the maintenance of the mother and what she needs through pregnancy or whatever. But if they're going through IVF and, like you said, all the law, everything, this child, for it to turn around and say it hates you. Oh. I can't.
Put it in the bin, literally.
Bills. Be like, well, this is what I paid for you. So if that's how you're going to act, I'm going to need all that money back. Yeah, no, that would suck. At least mine were free. You know, when mine act up, I'm like, oh, but I don't go, dang, that was $300,000 down the toilet.
Do you get maternity leave?
Well, I don't work, so I don't rate maternity leave.
Yeah.
But if you do work, you get, for every appointment, you get your wages covered and you get your maternity leave. Yes. So there's a lot of compensation in there that makes it so that they want you to be as least stressed as possible. And so every little thing is covered if it has anything to do with the baby.
Mama's Code.
Can you talk us through your birth? How was it?
My IPs showed up May 1st. I was due, God, I don't even remember now. On March 1st. I'm sorry. We're just in May. March 1st. I was due March 28th. Again, they showed up. They were supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks. That was the law at that time, in order to even be allowed into the hospital. I was supposedly allowed only one person with me, which wasn't even going to be my husband. It was going to be my best friend, the ones who's photographed my whole surrogacy journey. So I felt like if anybody deserved to be there for that ending, it was her. And my husband was okay with that. He was like, I'll be with the kids, you know, you go do your thing and, you know, don't worry about it. And so obviously the drama comes, and my blood pressure starts getting higher and higher and higher. I start having contractions. I am more of a toaster versus an oven. I pop my kids out when my body says they're done. And there's I've never made it to 40. I've never had to worry about, you know, going over that. And they're usually here within hours. So when I started contracting, I was like, this is it. You know, I'm not going to make it to the 2 weeks of quarantine. So my OB goes, just go in and we'll check you out. You know, you're 37 weeks already. Technically, that's full term. I can't force you to hold them in there. So just go in. And so I let everybody know, hey, you know, they want me to go in. And the IPs go, well, don't go into the hospital without us. We're going to walk you in. And I'm like, but you're not allowed in there. So what does it like matter? Like, you know, just let me check in. And they were like, no, we'll be here. So they actually parked at the hospital parking lot and waited for me to get there. And I'm a mom. I know that, it's going to be a bit of a while before I can't take the contractions anymore. So I started like cleaning, I washed my hair. So I don't know. I was probably there like 4 hours later. They were probably there waiting for me for 4 hours. And so we go in, and because of COVID, they're forcing you to walk in through the emergency room. So I have my husband is with me, and it's the two of them and their daughter, and kids aren't even allowed in the hospital at this point. So why she's there, I don't know. But I'm going in, I'm checking in, and the lady goes, well, you're allowed to have two people. And I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm allowed to have one person. And so they, hearing that, decided to lie and say that they were done with quarantine. So now I'm put in this spot where
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
what the is happening right now? No one's asked me what I wanted. And so one of them actually snuck up into the maternity room with me. And at this point, my blood pressure is like through the roof. They take my vitals and they're like, what is going on? Like, you have preeclampsia, like this isn't okay. We have to monitor you. And so this entire time, I'm like texting my best friend, like, hey, my husband's here right now. One of them snuck in with me. And I also want to add that my IPs were two men. So I was not ever comfortable with one of them being in the room with me. We had discussed that already. And so when one of them kind of just barged in, I felt so betrayed because I felt like I didn't matter anymore. And it was just all about what they wanted. And so that happened. I guess they had been calling every day the hospital. Will you let us in if she goes into labor? Will you let us in? And the hospital kept saying, no, you need to complete quarantine. Like, these are the rules. COVID's happening. This is a maternity ward. You just flew internationally. We cannot have that liability of you possibly carrying it. And now this whole maternity ward has it. Like, we just can't have that happen. So I get hooked in. My best friend finally comes and she's like texting me and she's like, you are so tense right now. Like, I feel so bad for you, because apparently, like, you could see it. I'm not like the greatest actress. I'm not great at hiding it. I'm too pregnant for it. So she could see it. And he wasn't really talking to her, and she wasn't really sure if she should try to talk to him. So I'm on this bed and I have one person on this side of the wall and one person on the farthest side of the wall. And I felt so awkward and so uncomfortable that I said, hey, I'm being induced. I hear this takes forever. I don't know. How about everybody leaves and I will text you when things start happening. So I finally convinced him to leave, because at first he was like not having it. He's like, no, like, I'll just stay. It's fine. And I was like, no, I would like everybody to leave. Like, I just need to rest. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to induce me. I would like to sleep while I can, because I haven't slept all night. And so I got them to leave. And the nurse comes and she goes, hey, you're the surrogate, right? And I was like, yes. And she was like, where are they from? And I was like, oh, they're from Spain. And she goes, when did they get here? And I was like, I don't know. And she goes, no, when did they get here? And I said, excuse me, I said, March 1st. And it's the 10th. So they still had a whole another 4 days. She goes, they are not allowed to be in here. They've called every damn day begging to be let in, and I've told them no. How did they even make it past security? And I said, well, they were asked if they had traveled internationally or anything, and they said no. And so they were allowed to come up here. She was so mad. She like took her mask off, starts cursing. How effing dare they? They know better. They're doctors. They're supposed to be the ones following the rules. Like, no, they're not coming back in here. She literally calls the hospital director, manager, I don't even know what they're called, but the top hospital person, and my room gets put on lockdown. My best friend has to go get her charger. She was like, hey, I have a kid at home. I need to check and my phone's dying. And they basically told her, if you walk out of this room, you will not be allowed back. So I said, you know what? Go ahead and go. Like, this shit is already too crazy for me. Like, I want to be alone. I'm sitting here crying because I feel like everything is my fault. Now I have to be the ones to tell them they're not going to be allowed back in here. They are going to miss the birth of their child. And so I'm even more stressed. So I send everybody home, and not even 4 hours later, I'm in the worst contractions ever. They keep telling me to wait to get the epidural. And finally, I'm like, I cannot wait anymore. I need it now. And so I get the epidural, and 30 minutes later, he is coming out. The doctor is not even there. I'm telling them, like, I have to push, call somebody. And she was like, well, he's on his way. And finally I said, I'm pushing. Either you guys can catch him or I'm pulling him out. Like, I am done suffering. So they yank a midwife from somewhere, and basically 2 pushes and he's out. And then finally, after you hear the baby crying, the doctor is like, did I make it? And we're like, no, you didn't make it. And so that was pretty funny. But after that, they asked me if I wanted to see the baby. And at that point, I was just so emotionally drained that I was like, yeah, I'll take a picture for his parents. But I didn't really want to spend any time with him or anything. And it also got awkward because after letting them know that they would not be allowed back in the hospital to hold their baby, they asked if he could stay with me. And I said, I am not comfortable with that. I think that would probably create some postpartum depression because this is not my kid. And now you're asking me to take care of this newborn and bond with it even more. And so I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to send him to the nursery. And so he was in the nursery. And the parents tried sneaking into the hotel again that night, or the hospital that night. And so then I'm like, oh my God, they're literally going to kick me out. They're going to be like, take you and your damn surrogacy drama and get out. But no, the nurses were so kind and understanding. And honestly, I think having just them with me made it one of the most comfortable deliveries in the world, because I didn't have anybody to kind of worry about, even when my husband's there, I'm like, are you bored? Like, are you okay? Are you tired? Like, what are you doing? Are you hungry? Even though you're the one in labor, you still worry about, everybody else. That's just like a mom thing. So I felt so comfortable, and they felt so bad for me that they just like were the best to me. And I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, the baby stayed in the nursery for, I think, 2 days. And then after that, they finally called the parents and said, hey, you can just come and grab your kid. So I'm like in the hospital recovering. And then I get like this picture, and it's like a selfie with the baby. And I was like, oh, yay, congrats. And then they asked if they could come see me with the baby. And at first I was like, no, I'm still upset that my birth was like that. I've never had drama like that in my life. So I was very reluctant. I told them, I was like, I'm tired. I'm going to rest for the day. And then the next day they asked again. And I just said, you know what, let me just do it here in a hospital setting where it's not personal. It's not them coming to my house. Because if I keep saying no, they're going to keep pushing. So finally, I told the nurse to go ahead and allow them in. And they were only in there for like 30 minutes. And I got to see this baby that I had been baking for, 9 months. And it was like a kind of a relief after I saw him. Like, my job's done. Like, this is over now. I can go back to being me. And that's how that went. I could not wait to come home. to my kids by myself and not have to answer to anybody anymore.
How did you feel with that first cry? Obviously, you said, because you didn't get skin to skin, did you? Or you did? No.
They tried to give me, and I said no. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not mine. So, when I heard his cry, I was honestly just happy that he was okay. I was like, okay, he's healthy, right? Like, I think that's all I asked was, is he healthy? And they said yes. And then I just felt relieved because I didn't have any more bad news to give. I was gonna have people hounding me for what do you mean something's wrong? What's wrong? I knew that they were gonna know that I had done my job correctly and I was healthy and I followed all their rules. So that's how I felt. I felt 100% relieved.
Did you do any expressing for them, or you just had the baby and that was it?
So some surrogates do that. I said that I don't have the time, which I honestly did not. So, and they didn't really want it either because they have to travel back to Spain. So to send breast milk all the way over there during the COVID times, like it just wasn't going to work out. So they formula fed from the beginning.
How did you feel mentally after having the baby? Like when you've gone home and your whole postpartum?
I think I would have been fine had it not ended like that. I was sad that that's how it ended because I had pictured, me with my best friend giving birth, and she had snuck in some like champagne mini bottles and she's like, we're going to pop these when you're done. And we were going to have a cool photo shoot and I was going to order some steak. And that's not how it went down. So I felt really angry that they would put me in that position to begin with and kind of ruin what had been, for the most part, such a fairy tale for me. So I was really sad. And then I came home that first night and I just cried. And I couldn't even tell you why I was crying. I think it was just everything that I had felt all at once was coming out. And my husband was like, oh my God, like she's getting depression. What do I do? And I told him, like, I just need to cry. I'm fine, but this is my body telling me to just let it go. And so I cried that whole night. And then the next day I was fine. And I was like, all right, that's over. Now let me focus on recovering, which, by the way, for me was way more hard not having this little baby to focus on. When I had my kids, I don't remember the pain and the aches because I was just tired and I had to breastfeed and you're like this zombie. But when you're just recovering on your own, you're like, oh my God, like everything hurts. Like, what the heck? Why am I so tired? And so that was rough. But after that, I didn't feel any kind of sadness or anything. Thank God. I think I did pretty well emotionally.
You don't have the distraction of the baby. I feel like it's that, because obviously you're so busy and you're still in that awe of, oh my God, I've got it now, like it's mine, and that your pains kind of just shift. What, like, obviously within the paperwork and everything, how does it work? Do you have contact with the family? If the baby wants to know that you carried him, will he be able to know? Will they send pictures? I don't know. Just how does that all work?
So that whole conversation actually happens on your blind date kind of thing, because they want to make sure that you're both on the same page. So I have no problem with the baby knowing that I carried him. They actually, while they were here, they visited their daughter's surrogate for the first time. So she got to see this now 5-year-old girl that's like talking and eating and playing and has this gorgeous little accent. And so for her, she was like, oh my God, like I gave birth to that baby 5 years ago and look at her. She's her own little person now. So they do like to keep in touch, and I get monthly updates. on the baby and them. But some girls, like, when you're done, like, goodbye, like, don't bother me. And it's a cultural thing too. I hear that a lot of Chinese intended parents are very, very like, don't bother me, do not talk to me, do not ever message me again, here's your money, goodbye. And I don't know that I'd be able to handle that, honestly. um so I decided to go with parents that do want to let me know every now and then that he's doing great and growing and thriving.
I guess it's all, like you were saying, the contract is something that you both have to agree on points that you want and don't want. And I think that's amazing that you can have that flexibility and you're not just signing up to something that you genuinely don't agree with. And I think it's important both for the intended parents and the surrogate, because I think down the line you don't know how you're going to react. This is, I mean, I don't know if this is a stupid question, but even though the embryo was donated, is there still some part of your DNA in that because you carry the child?
I am sure there
Because
is,
the placenta,
especially because the placenta, the blood, travels through there. So I'm sure when I give birth, a lot of, some of my DNA went right to him. So I would like to watch him grow up the way, I'm watching their daughter surrogate watch her grow up. I think that would be cool. And I think that's another reason why I wanted somebody that was willing to let me in on that as well, because at the end of the day, that baby wouldn't be there if it weren't for me and this egg donor. So I do kind of feel like I have a right to at least ask if that's possible.
Would you mind if in the future the baby won't be a baby anymore, the kid wants a relationship with you?
I wouldn't mind, but I honestly don't see it happening for these kids because their parents are so amazing. And they're very open, their daughter knows how she got here and who helped. So if the kid wanted to come visit after he was 18, I'm all for that. If that relationship stays constant, I don't know how comfortable he's gonna feel with me, because I don't want it to be like that's my long lost son. That's not at all how I see that. But if he wanted to say hi, if he just happened to be in town and would like to meet up for a lunch or something, I think that I would be comfortable with. They definitely want me and my family to visit Spain. But I think I need a little time to myself for now. Maybe when he's older, I would like to go and check out Spain, but I don't know. I don't see him like knocking on my door one day and being like, "Hey, are you the lady that gave birth to me?" Like, I feel like that would be more of a question for the egg donor, because I know that a lot of egg donation is done anonymously. And I feel like that's where the bigger questions lie of who is my biological mom, especially for somebody like me who had, gay parents.
Just before we start wrapping up the episode, what would be the best way to support a surrogate?
Honestly, just asking them if they're okay. I think the mental checks along the way are very important. And I think what I can say for anyone out there that is thinking of being a surrogate, make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons. It's a ton of money. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a life-changing amount of money for some people. But do not make that your focus of why you're doing this, because it'll turn into probably the worst experience of your life and the worst job of your life. So definitely do this because you think you're strong enough to do this and because you truly want to make a difference in someone's life. and really give them that ultimate gift of, hey, here's your baby, congratulations, you're complete now. Because I've seen a lot of girls do it for money, and this isn't even a guarantee that you're going to get pregnant. And they tell you that from the beginning. Do not make plans with this money. It can at any point in the journey stop coming in. So if you are in a financial situation where you need money, I don't suggest you do this, because it's a lot to go through mentally and physically and emotionally for a few dollars. It's just not worth it to me. If that's your reason for doing it, just don't. I know times are tough, but don't. Because I feel like when your mind is set on why you're doing this, to give a family their baby, it's easier for you to get back on track mentally when these walls, when you hit these roadblocks, to tell yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Oh, that's right, because I'm gonna give somebody their little baby that they've been hoping for years. I'm making somebody a big sister. It's easier to keep sane when you're doing it that way. But definitely all my friends, they still invited me out. No, I couldn't go to the winery, but they didn't just abandon me. And I felt like that was really important for me, because I still had somewhat of a life. And my husband was still very like, hey, do you want to go out and go on a date? He didn't also like cast me off to the side, like, hey, come back when you're not pregnant anymore with this random person's baby. Definitely include them and help them. It's a lot of appointments, and it's a lot of self-control that you lose. And I think it's important to surround yourself with like this amazing support group that you can vent to. I don't know how many times my friends heard me vent, and not really in a complaining kind of way, but just this like, oh my God, like I had no idea that this is where I would be 3 times a week, was hooked up to a doctor's office, And so it just felt good to know that I had people that I could talk to and turn to when I was doubting myself.
I want to ask something. The baby's now in Spain, right?
Yes, he is.
How was it saying goodbye to him?
That was actually harder than I thought, because I did not imagine myself hanging out with them afterwards because of all the drama that happened right before. But when we hung out after they had the baby, it was such a fun time. So it made it easier to want to hang out more and more and more. And I think I kind of like set myself up for a little failure there, because I was seeing the baby almost every other day. So I was like watching him grow. And when I saw them for the last time, I like got in my car and I just like cried, and I was like, oh my God, it's over. And it's not that you're crying for the baby, really. It's, you've been the center of the universe for these 2 people. I think they asked me more how I was doing more than my husband ever has since we've been married. So you have this big thing that you're a part of, and the minute you say goodbye, it's over. It's done. You're back to just being you. No one's gonna say good morning, how's the baby, how are you feeling, are you okay? Like, all of that is gone with the baby. So it takes some time to remember who you are on your own and what your role is with your kids and your husband. And that's what was hard, was this thing that has taken over my life for almost 2 years because of COVID is now over. What do I do now?
Also, what was the least favorite part during this whole process?
When I think about it, I would have to say just the hospital drama. But if that hadn't happened, the least favorite part is the beginning when you're being monitored on a weekly, sometimes daily basis at the fertility clinic. And then that wait after the transfer, and you're like waiting to find out if it took or not. I think that was like almost suffocating in a way, because you're just like, oh my God, did I do everything right? Did I rest enough? Did I do my shots in the right area enough? Or did I do them at the exactly right time every day? That gets a little overwhelming. I think that was my least favorite part. But once you leave the fertility clinic, it becomes almost like a normal pregnancy.
I have one more.
Erica, she does need to go pick up the kids, you know.
I feel like we missed the part, and it was the whole process of the IVF. And does it hurt when they insert it, you know, the injections?
It's a lot of medicine. So for somebody that doesn't even take some Flintstone vitamins, all of a sudden having this drawer of medicines and what hour to take them, it was overwhelming. And then you start your injections, which if you're the mom, you insert them in your stomach if you're going through IVF. But if you're a surrogate, it's like right above your butt on your hip. And so that was really scary. I'm not a nurse. I hate having to touch any kind of needles or anything. So the thought of me giving myself these huge shots of this thick progesterone every night for 3 months was scary. And I wanted to make sure that I was doing it right. And so I watched videos from the clinic over and over again. And I just said, you know what? I have to do this every night. I need to get over it and get good at it, because the better I do it, the less it's going to hurt. And my agency gave me this little like ice pad that goes right there, and it's like the perfect spot and the perfect size. And I literally would just freeze it until I could not feel it anymore. Like I would pinch my butt, and if I didn't feel it, I was like, okay, we're good to go. And I would just go in there and I would like stab myself, and that's it. Other people, I tried letting my husband do it once, because obviously the left side's a little tricky because I'm short. My arm doesn't really reach back there. So now I have to do it left-handed, which is horrible. And I tried to let him do it once, and he like hesitated and like went in and then pulled back out and then stabbed me again. And I had the biggest bruise ever. And I was like, you're done. Don't touch me. I'll just figure this out on my own. So that's also fun. But the day of the transfer, you just go in, and it's almost like getting a pap smear. I think actually a pap smear hurts even more than the actual transfer. They have the baby is in this like cryo freezer thing. They take him out. They let him thaw for a couple of hours. They check on it with a microscope, make sure it's still healthy, still a baby, still alive. And you're hooked up to this computer, and they bring in a catheter that's like super long, and you literally watch the baby go from like the petri dish right up to your ovary. Like you watch the entire thing, and it's just like the weirdest, coolest thing ever. And then you lay down, and they put like spa music on for like half an hour. And then they're like, okay, you can go home now. And you're supposed to do, I think it's like 2 days of bed rest, like get up, go to the bathroom, that kind of thing, get something to eat, but no mom activities for sure. Yeah, it was actually really easy. The actual getting pregnant part was the easiest part of it all.
I'm not going to ask anymore.
I'm fine. You have more, I'm fine. I'm good till I think half another hour more. So you're good. You're totally good.
In that case, rolls the paper out. Is there anything that you really would like to tell, you know, whoever's thinking of surrogacy to know, or something that you didn't know or you wish you knew?
I mean, I feel like my agency was pretty honest with me about what to expect. Um, but I want to tell people that just because you're super fertile in your own pregnancy does not mean that it's going to be easy in IVF. IVF is hard, period, whether you're fertile or not. And it's not a walk in the park. And that doesn't mean that it's your fault if things don't work out on the first time or the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth. IVF is, yeah, there's a high success rate, but there's also a high rate of it failing. And so I want surrogates or people that are thinking of doing it to not have any expectations. Really, that's the best thing you can do for yourself going into something like this. Because again, I thought that my birth was going to be, a walk in the park, and it ended up being really horrible and kind of traumatic. So if you just go into this whole process with whatever happens, and I'll deal that bridge, we'll cross that bridge when we get there kind of attitude, I feel like it's going to be so much easier for you. Really. That's really the only thing that I want people to know.
I have just one more thing, and it's about, that they were told, so you made it very obvious that you weren't comfortable with them being in the room. Did you not approach it say to your caseworker that they've made you have this awful experience?
Yeah, no, she was literally there every step of the way, and she was just, I think, kind of more upset than I was, because it's her job to kind of watch out for me and protect me from anything that might come up. And so when they kind of violated all of the process and, everything we had agreed on last minute, I'm pretty sure she had it out with them behind closed doors, obviously. To the point where I don't know what happens when a parent violates the contracts and the rules and the privacy of their surrogate. Does the agency drop them from being IPs for them, further on? I don't know what their consequences were, aside from obviously missing the birth of their child and waiting a few days to hold him. But she was very, very I cannot believe this is happening. And it was really hard for her because she was also not allowed in the hospital because of COVID. So she had to do what she could from behind a phone. And I think that made it really hard on her. And to this day, she apologizes for it. But, we are humans. We cannot control what somebody else is going to do at any point in time. And I don't blame anybody for what happened. I just wish it hadn't, because if I do feel, and she and I kind of both feel this way, had they not been so pushy, I probably would have made it to the quarantine being over, and then a conversation could have been had. Like maybe I would change my mind, or maybe I would allow one of them to be up here with me, or be in the room but step out or go behind the curtain when it came time to push, and then pop right back out as soon as everything was covered, so yeah, she felt horrible that happened, and I'm sure she dealt with it in her own way.
Yeah, it just seems a bit unfair that obviously you've literally stuck to everything that was asked, even to the point where you guys went back and forth with say coffee, something as small as that, but you've kept, you're doing, you had a perfect pregnancy, and then they just ruined that whole experience for you at the end. And it's kind of selfish, and I try to put myself in their position, because it's obviously when you're a parent, even like when I've had like my boys, even my parents, like I remember my dad pacing back and forth outside of the hospital, but I would never think that he would come in to make me feel uncomfortable, because ultimately it's our decision, it's our body. We should be able to say, no, look, I don't want you in there. And you don't know these people. So it's kind of like, yes, I'm carrying your baby, but I'm carrying it. Let me do it, and then I'll just hand it to you. But don't.
It's a bit intrusive.
Yeah.
And I think I was very taken aback by that, because these conversations were had. And then when we actually met for the first time, I invited a caseworker to come with me, because it's awkward, you know, and they brought it up again. And she was like, well, Gloria's allowed to have one person, and it's not either one of you. And you have to be okay with that. And they were like, yeah, no, we understand. And so maybe their emotions got the best of them during that, you know, they saw an opportunity to go for it, and they went for it. And I don't think they realized the damage that caused. And I'm sure, looking back at it, had they just let me do it, I probably would have helped life for them, honestly. Like, oh yeah, no, they've been here a while, yeah, go give them their baby. But I wasn't even given that chance. That conversation wasn't even, hey, let's do the, you know, it was just like I was bulldozed along with everybody else. And you don't expect that as a surrogate. But again, do not expect anything, because everything can be perfect like mine was, and then it just all goes south. Or maybe it could be horrible for you, and then they get here and it's all rainbows and butterflies. Like, that could also happen. So yeah, I mean, I do think they were super selfish when they did that, and I wish they hadn't, because in the end, they screwed themselves over, and their baby was in the nursery for 2 days with like whoever was on shift at the nursery. And I can't imagine that that's a good feeling as a parent. I wouldn't want that.
How did you feel with knowing that he was like a few steps away from you?
I was just gonna ask that, like, knowing that, oh no, he's by himself. Like, when we watch the American films and they've had a baby and they go put them in this room, we're always like, oh my god, that could never be me, because imagine someone comes and takes the baby,
and you find these psychos that literally the own nurses just take them home, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
Excuse me,
or the baby's crying and no one is there to be like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little worried, because I didn't want him just laying there crying, you know, his little heart out. But I got to see some of the nursery staff, and they were like arguing over who was gonna get to hold him. So I was like, I think he's in great hands. I don't think he'll miss 1 second of attention. And no, it didn't. I think I was so angry and so hurt that I didn't even care that he was, you know, a few doors down. I was trying to wrap my head around what had just happened to me, and this birth that was nothing like I've ever experienced in my life. So yeah, I think my mind was super preoccupied. I don't know how it is for other girls. I had one surrogate say that the nurse messed up and put the baby on her chest instead of handing it to the mom. And that completely destroyed her, because she felt that connection instantly, even if it was for a second, because obviously mom reached over and snatched it from her. But you know, maybe it would have been harder for me if everything turned out to be perfect during delivery. I don't know, maybe it is kind of a blessing in disguise. I don't know, but I was too busy being angry to worry about do I want to hold them? Like, no, I was mad. Let me be mad.
This has been amazing. Like, you don't understand how excited. Today I messaged Jessica all day, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so anxious. I just can't wait to listen to her, because like when I came across your profile, I felt like a connection, and I was like, yes, Jessica, we have our candidate. This is literally, it's like I crowned you Miss Universe, and you were I was like, I don't need no one else. I just need her to tell us her story. And it's just so surreal because I remember screenshotting the picture of you with the baby. Like you had said that it had been a week now since you, and I was like, oh my God, my heart,
And
that
that was
picture.
actually my first time seeing him since I popped him out. So I was so scared that day because I didn't know if all the anger that I felt from the birth was gonna like resurface again. So I was really nervous, and we were meeting at a winery. And my husband's like, I don't think you should be drinking. Like, you get very honest when you're drunk. Like, let's let them drink and we'll just have water. But I remember seeing them with him, and I just like all the anger went out the door, and I was like, oh my God, like they're so perfect together. I was so happy. And I looked at him and I was like, you don't even look like the baby that I popped out. Like, I don't know, maybe I was just like too tired or angry or whatever, but I could have sworn to you he looks so different. And yeah, no, it was cool getting to see when all the hard work and the stress was over, really, and how perfect he was.
Gloria, before we let you go, we like to wrap up our episodes with a golden tip. I know you said about expectations, but is there anything else that you would like to tip people on looking to start the procedure or just in motherhood in general?
Definitely do your research. Do not settle for the first agency that's gonna, fill your head and, oh, look at all the money you're gonna be making. Talk to 10 and then talk to all of them again. Make sure that their story doesn't change. Make sure that the benefits don't change. Make sure that they're willing to answer even the most awkward question, because these are the people that you are trusting essentially with your life for the next year and a half or up to 2 years, depending on how long it takes for you to get pregnant. They should honestly be at your beck and call, because yes, you kind of work for them, but mainly they work for you. Like, really feel safe and feel it in your gut and take time. No one should ever rush you to sign up. No one should make you feel like you have to answer yes or no after meeting parents right away. Take your time. If you really want to do this, definitely just take your time, because I'd rather someone do their due diligence and look back and say it was totally worth it, or be like me and be like, I know I said I was never going to do that again, but I would totally do that again. Versus like, I can't believe I allowed myself to do that. I hated that. I never even want to talk about this anymore, which there are some stories like that. Even with my agency, there are stories like that. So definitely give yourself time. Time is your friend in a journey like this.
I have one more thing.
Oh my goodness.
I just like, I feel like again we skipped a whole important topic. I mean, it's, you have kids. Were your kids involved in this? And your kids are like big, they're not babies, so they're aware, mummy's belly's growing, there's a baby inside, like, where's this baby going? How do you explain it to a child?
To be honest with you, that was the easiest explanation of my life. I said, hey, mommy's pregnant, her belly's gonna get bigger, but it's not ours. And my oldest one was like, oh, thank God, I don't want any more little siblings. And my youngest one was like, oh, well, whose baby is it then if it's not ours? And I showed them a picture of who it belonged to. And I was like, look, they really want this baby. They've been waiting forever. That's his big sister, and she's so excited. She cannot wait to see him. And one day you're going to get to meet her because she'll come over here. And then it was like this cool thing for them. Like, oh my God, like my mom, like, and even my oldest was like, yeah, my mom's having a baby, but it's not ours. Like, she's helping this family. And so that was actually really easy. And I made sure not to like call it anything cute. I made sure not to like rub my belly or anything crazy in front of them, because I didn't want them to grow an attachment if I could help that. so I, we always called it so-and-so's baby or the baby, and things like that. And it was easy. What was hard for me was breaking it to them that this baby was going to have two dads, only because my oldest is autistic and he wants to know how and why. And he's very black and white. He wants facts and he will not let it go until he feels like he's asked everything possible. So when I told him that the baby would have two daddies, it was, well, why doesn't it have a mom? Or are you the mom? And it just gets two dads. And so we had to have that conversation, and he took it very well, he really did. And I was worried even more so when it was time to physically meet them, because I was like, oh my God, my son doesn't have a filter. A lot of autistic children don't. They just kind of say what's on their mind. So I was worried that he was going to make a comment that would be taken the wrong way or offensive, but he was fine. He was totally fine. I feel like explaining it to adults around me was way harder. Still to this day is way harder than it was telling children. Because I think even now, I haven't fully announced that, I did it for a gay couple. And I didn't announce it until after I had the baby, because I was so worried about the hate messages. I was worried about the stress that it would bring if somebody said something to me, because I would probably say something back, and I can't fight when I'm pregnant. So it was stressful. And I think this is one of the first times where I'm saying, like, I was a surrogate for a gay couple.
It truly has been amazing, and it takes a really kind, compassionate person to go through the process that you've been through. It's so selfless and powerful in a way, because because of you, someone is a completed family now, and to know that you've put aside all your feelings, anything that has got to do with you for someone else's happiness, is amazing. And honestly, I think I speak for myself and Erica that we salute you in what you've done, and truly amazing. And thank you so much for being on today's episode. I was about to say to be on the show tonight, but we're not on a TV. But thank you so much. Honestly, it's been amazing, and hopefully this does help someone out there that is thinking of this, or possibly down the line will be faced with the option of having a surrogate or being a surrogate.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for reaching out and kind of like trusting me with this podcast. It's been fun. Again, I have never really talked about it like this because no one really cares around here. They're just like, yeah, whatever. So it was cool to finally be able to like talk about my experience, and I hope I don't scare away anyone from wanting to do this, but I also hope that I've encouraged people that do want to do it to really do their research about it and ask all the questions that I probably didn't think about asking. And I hope everyone the best. And
thank you.
If you guys have more questions for me, like DM me, or we could do a part 2, whatever. So
you've got lifelong friends here in London. I'm a big fan.
I'll do my ticket soon. And you guys can come to California whenever.
Gonna pack my bag now.
Right, guys, thank you so much. Wait, sorry, I know we spoke about gestational surrogacy and what is it?
See, and she complains about me.
Because we had an episode like a couple of months ago that I was saying that if me and my partner break up and I want a sibling for my baby, I will do traditional insemination. So if I do ever come across that, I will be messaging you, and you can be with me on that journey. I'll be like, Gloria, I was sitting on the bed with my legs up for about 2 hours waiting for it to stay there.
You put this little Velcro on it, and then it helps it stick. No, yeah, no, I'll be here. I'm here, and who knows? Maybe a year or so from now, you guys will see me on journey number 2.
Oh my
Who
God.
knows?
If you
What
do,
if
we have to have you on this
podcast again.
Oh,
Definitely.
for sure.
Definitely.
And I feel like this time what I regret is not really documenting my feelings every day. I took the weekly pictures because at the end I made a baby book and gave it to them with all the pictures of my growing belly, but I didn't document how I was feeling in every step of the process. And I feel like that would be even more helpful for somebody wanting to be a surrogate versus just showing like oh, she's so pretty pregnant, like, that's the fun stuff. But I feel like I need to show more of the real stuff, the behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, you've painted a very good picture here today, because not a lot of people know, and like you said, the hardest part is being basically prisoned, because it almost feels like a prison sentence for 9 months.
And traveling too. If I want to go somewhere that's more than 50 miles, I have to ask for permission. And that's something I like to travel. I like to get my kids in the car and go. So yeah, it's put it in that mindset of you are not you for a year and a half to 2 years. And then I think that kind of helped with deciding.
Mum's Code out. Mwah.
Mama's
I'll
Code.
let you go now before you're late to pick up the kid. Or before Erica has another question.
Am I?